Okay, so today we're going deep, deep, deep into the Hunger Games universe. We are talking about the prequel, Sunrise on the Reaping.
Yep.
We're going to be uncovering all sorts of secrets.
Yes, indeed. Secrets about Haymitch Abernathy.
Oh, yeah.
His early life. The 50th Hunger Games.
Oh, the second quarter quell.
Yes, the second quarter quell.
You know, we always love a good quarter quell.
Right.
So to do this deep dive, we're going to be looking at a bunch of different sources.
Yeah.
We've got excerpts from a podcast called Palabras, Tope. We've got summaries of the book. We've got kind of all the basic details of the book covered. So we're going to be well equipped to dive into this thing. And our mission today is to, I think a lot of times people just want to hear a basic summary of a book, but we are going to try to pull out the most important nuggets, the deep, deep themes and things that maybe you wouldn't know just from reading a summary.
Yep.
So
yeah, let's set the stage. This new book, it takes place 24 years before the events of the Hunger Games trilogy.
Okay.
And it's set on the morning of the reaping for the 50th Hunger Games, which also happens to be the second quarter quell.
Yes. So a quarter quell, just to remind everyone, happens every 25 years. And it's basically the Capitol's way of spicing things up and making the games even more brutal than they already are. In this particular quarter quell, they decide that each district has to send double the number of tributes. So instead of one boy and one girl, you're sending 2 boys and 2 girls.
Exactly. So imagine the impact that this has on the districts. I mean, you're essentially doubling the amount of fear and despair and just the sheer terror of the whole event.
Yeah, and think about it from the family's perspective. To have your chances of losing a child doubled in one fell swoop is just
brutal.
Brutal. Absolutely brutal. So amidst all of this chaos and sorrow and all that, we meet our protagonist, who is a young man named Haymitch Abernathy.
Haymitch Abernathy from District 12.
So we all know Haymitch from, the original trilogy as Katniss's and Peeta's mentor. He's the, kind of cynical, drunk.
The jaded.
Yeah, jaded mentor. But in this story, we see him as a teenager.
As a young man just starting out.
Yeah.
Full of life and optimism.
I don't know about optimism, but he's definitely not jaded yet because he hasn't gone through the games yet. And so the question that I think a lot of people have going into this book is how did Haymitch win?
Right.
Because he's the only other victor from District 12, besides Katniss and Peeta.
Exactly.
And so we kind of want to know what was it about him?
He set him apart.
That enabled him to survive.
Well, one of the things we learned is that in the arena, Haymitch makes a very important discovery.
Yeah.
He realizes that there's this sort of invisible force field that surrounds the entire arena.
Okay.
And it's not just any force field.
Okay.
This force field causes objects to bounce back with incredible force.
So if you throw something at it,
it comes right back at you.
Okay.
But with even more power.
Wow. Okay, so how does he...
And this is where Haymitch's cunning comes into play.
Okay.
You see, in the final confrontation, he's up against this tribute from District 1.
Right.
This, career tribute who's been trained for this her entire life.
So she's like a professional.
Yeah, she's a total pro.
Okay.
And she's armed with this wicked axe.
Oh, jeez.
And she hurls this axe at Haymitch with deadly accuracy.
Oh, no.
But instead of panicking, instead of trying to block the axe or dodge it in a conventional way, Haymitch remembers the force field.
Okay.
He waits until the very last second, and then he just moves slightly out of the way. The axe sails past him, hits the force field, and bounces back.
Oh, wow.
With unbelievable force, straight towards the District 1 tribute.
Oh, so he used the force field too.
He used it to his
advantage. Oh, my gosh.
It was brilliant.
So he didn't actually defeat her himself. He used the
environment.
Yeah, he used the arena.
He used the arena against her.
Wow.
And this is something that they talked about in Palabras, Tope, this idea of lateral thinking.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Thinking outside the box, finding unconventional solutions to problems.
Yeah, and they were talking about how in the business world, like a small startup might not be able to,
Right.
compete with like a huge corporation
Right.
just head on.
Right.
They don't have the resources, they don't have the manpower.
Right.
So they have to find these like creative ways to kind of
To disrupt the market, to get a foothold.
Right.
And that's what Haymitch did.
That's exactly what Haymitch did. He used what he had
He used what he had available.
and he thought outside the box.
He found a way to win.
And that is, I think, what makes Haymitch such a fascinating character.
Absolutely.
Okay, but Sunrise on the Reaping isn't just about, the violence and the gore of the games. It also delves into some really interesting themes.
It does.
One of which is the idea of propaganda and the control of narrative.
Right.
So we see how the Capitol uses media and information to manipulate the citizens of Panem and keep them under control.
It's not just about brute force.
Right.
It's about controlling the narrative, controlling what people believe.
So it's like they're not just trying to physically overpower people. They're trying to
They're trying to control their mind.
Yeah.
They're trying to shape their perception of reality.
And make them think that the Capitol is the good guy.
Exactly.
Right.
And the districts are the bad guys.
Yeah, and I think this is where we can see the influence of, people like the philosopher David Hume.
Right.
And I know that Palabras Tope talked about this as well, like this idea that the few can control the many very easily if they can just control the narrative.
Through manipulation, through deception.
And it's all about creating this doubt.
Right.
This question of real or not real.
Real or not real? That's the question that hangs over everything in Panem.
And I think that's something that we can all relate to.
Absolutely.
Today in, the age of misinformation.
Fake news, alternative facts, all of that.
Yeah, how do we know what to believe?
Right.
We're constantly bombarded with information from all these different sources, and it's hard to tell what's real and what's not.
And I think Palabras Tope made a really interesting point about this. They said that, in a way, we're all citizens of Panem, in a sense.
Whoa.
We're all trying to navigate this complex information landscape and figure out what's true.
And we have to be really careful about, what sources we trust.
We have to be discerning.
Yeah.
We have to be critical thinkers.
So I guess the question is, why is Suzanne Collins coming back to this world now?
Yeah, why revisit Panem after all these years?
We already had the trilogy, and we had the prequel, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes.
Right.
So what is it about this particular Schmall that she felt compelled to tell?
Well, I think it's because the themes that she explores in the Hunger Games, they're still so relevant today.
Like what?
Like inequality and oppression and resistance.
Yeah.
And the struggle for justice.
Those are all timeless.
They're timeless issues.
Yeah.
And I think by going back to the early days of Panem, by showing us the origins of the Hunger Games and the rise of the Capitol, she's giving us a new perspective on these issues.
Right.
And she's also reminding us that these problems, they're not new.
Right.
They've been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And they're not going away anytime soon.
And she's showing us that even in the darkest of times, there's always hope.
There's always the possibility of resistance.
There's always the possibility of fighting back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think Haymitch's story is a perfect example of that.
Right. He's not some, superhero. He's just a regular kid who's thrown into this.
He's thrown into a terrible situation.
Yeah.
But he finds a way to survive.
He finds a way to outsmart the system.
He uses his wits. He uses his cunning. He uses his intelligence.
And he gives us hope.
He does.
Okay, so speaking of bringing these stories to life, there's been a lot of buzz about the upcoming film adaptation of Sunrise on the Reaping.
Absolutely.
And I know a lot of fans are excited to see, this young Haymitch on the big screen.
To see his story come to life.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lionsgate has scheduled the release for November 22, 2026.
Okay, so we got a little bit of a wait.
Yeah, a little bit of a wait.
But it's coming. And this is actually a really good example of what Palabras Tope was talking about with transmedia storytelling.
Yes.
So can you explain a little bit about what that is and why it's important?
Yeah, sure. So transmedia storytelling is basically the idea of telling a story across multiple platforms.
Okay.
So you might have a book, and then a movie, and then a video game, and maybe even a comic book.
Okay.
And each of these platforms tells a different part of the story or explores a different aspect of the characters.
So they're all kind of interconnected.
Right. They all fit together to create this larger, more immersive experience.
And what's the benefit of that?
Well, for one thing, it allows you to reach a wider audience.
Okay.
Because not everyone likes to read books.
Right.
Some people prefer to watch movies, or play video games.
Yeah.
So by telling your story across multiple platforms, you're making it accessible to more people.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it also allows you to deepen the engagement.
Okay.
Because each platform can offer a different perspective on the story.
Right.
And it can encourage fans to explore the different parts of the narrative.
So, like, if you're really into the book,
Yeah.
you might be more likely to check out the movie and vice versa.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's a way of creating this really rich and engaging experience for fans.
So that's what Unrise on the Reaping is doing. It's giving us, like, the book, the movie, and who knows, maybe there'll be, like...
Maybe a video game.
A video game someday.
A graphic novel.
Yeah.
The possibilities are endless.
Oh, my gosh.
The world of Panem is so rich and so complex that there are so many stories that could be told.
And I think that's why people are so drawn to it.
I think so, too.
Okay, so let's just take a minute to, like, recap everything that we've talked about today.
Yeah.
We started by setting the stage, you know, the morning of the reaping for the 50th Hunger Games, the second quarter quell.
Right.
We talked about how, you know, the capital decided to up the ante by making each district send double the number of tributes. Then we met our protagonist, Haymitch Abernathy.
Young Haymitch.
Yeah, young Haymitch. And we learned about his incredible victory in the arena.
How he used the force field to his advantage.
How he outsmarted the career tribute.
Yeah.
And then we kind of dove into some of the deeper themes.
The deeper themes.
Yeah, like the propaganda, the control of narrative.
The manipulation.
And how that all ties into, like, our own world today.
Our own struggles with information and misinformation.
And then we talked about, you know, why Suzanne Collins is coming back to this world and why she feels like this story is so important to tell. And then finally, we touched on the upcoming movie adaptation.
And transmedia storytelling.
And the whole idea of transmedia storytelling.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's been a really fascinating deep dive.
It has been. So to leave you all with, like, one final thought to kind of ponder as you go about your day, think about the ways in which, you know, the citizens of Panem are manipulated by the capital.
Through information.
And think about how that might relate to your own life.
To your own experiences, to the information that you consume.
Like, are you being manipulated in ways that you don't even realize?
Right.
You know, what are the forces that are trying to shape your perception of reality?
And are you aware of them?
Yeah. Are you aware of them?
Are you questioning them?
And are you thinking critically about the information that you're receiving?
And are you seeking out different perspectives?
So, yeah, those are just some things to think about. I would encourage you to read Sunrise and Reaping when it comes out.
Absolutely.
Maybe revisit the original trilogy with this new perspective in mind.
And think about the themes of power and resistance.
Yeah.
And truth. And how they play out in your own life.
And in the world around you.
In the world around you.
Yeah. So.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been great.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. And until next time.
Stay curious.
Happy reading.